Right there. So if you want to put something in there, you're welcome to do. Okay. All right. Oh yes, that if you want to make a contribution to the Tor offering tonight, that's the envelope. Yes. And it's 6:30. 6:30, yes, exactly. So you need to eat and speed pee to be there on time. Okay. A little early. Also for the meditation tonight, I hope it's okay. I was thinking, what could I do? We're pretty much done with the text. We've done a lot of emptiness. There is a way, and also Venerable Drupa talks about your interest in Tonglen. So there is a way to bring together emptiness by way of reflecting on equalizing and exchanging self for others, to do a little bit of that, and take it from there to do some Tonglen. Of course, you could also do it in the morning again. You've already... Yes. No, but still there's no... No, we do it now, but why not do it again? It fits so nicely, especially with emptiness. This equalizing and exchanging self for others, in terms of emptiness, of course, and then there's compassion. It combines many aspects. And since you're all interested in Tonglen, and Tonglen is, again, one of those things, if you don't want to reflect on the Dharma, we have to breathe, right? I mean, as I said, we can bring Dharmic, we can bring the practice of the Dharma into our daily life by way of reflecting on these ideas and so forth. We can do that, but we can also bring Tonglen in our life. Easily. Breathe in, breathe out, and visualize. As you stand in the queue at the cashier in the supermarket, and think, taking all their sufferings, the cashier's sufferings, and the suffering, the beings around me. It's beautiful. And there you're doing a very powerful practice and get your groceries. Right? Okay. So, anyway. Okay. That's what I would like to do. To say a little bit about the practice tomorrow morning, taking the precepts. Well, the practice tomorrow morning, it's mainly about... Okay, I want to wait because everyone should hear this. No worries. Take your time. Okay. So the practice tomorrow morning, well, it's a ritual. Today is a ritual as well, actually, but a ritual that only helps us to keep mindful of the meaning. So rituals in Buddhism are not for the sake of the ritual, but you go through a certain practice and you pay attention, of course. And you try to do it with a beginner's mind every time. So every time it's a totally new experience. Okay, so for the practice tomorrow, is also you go through some prayers that are always recited. But as you'll see, it's all for the benefit of others, and you take certain precepts. They're not something. Well, they're actually vows in a way, because you take them. Well, certain things you refrain from. So a vow really means you promise to refrain from something, and you do that for a certain period of time. There are vows you keep for a day. There are vows you keep for a lifetime, and there are vows you keep until you become enlightened. At least you try to. Right? So you have the one-day vows. Just as you have monks and nuns vows, you can take those for a day. In other traditions, you can take monks and nuns vows for a longer time, not for your whole life. In this tradition, you take them for your whole life, but of course you can always give them back. It was, until very recently, it was considered to be really negative to give them back. But if you don't break them, it's actually okay to give them back. And I know plenty of monks and nuns who were disrobed, and still I feel like they're like Dharma brothers and sisters because they've done it. So for me, it's nothing negative. It's good they've lived that life and they've tried it and they found it wasn't the right thing for them, but they still have that background. And it's not easy to be a monk or a nun, especially in the West. And nowadays, even in Tibetan society, it's totally accepted. Many monks and nuns who no longer, in the past it was frowned upon in Tibetan society. It's all changed. But the point is, you take the vows for some time. So in this case, you take them for one day only. It's part of the ritual. But you do it for the benefit of all sentient beings. So the motivation is important. Now you refrain from taking life. That's not that difficult. I mean, even an insect, try not to kill an insect. You don't steal, again, quite easy to don't take anything that hasn't been given to you. You don't lie. I mean, here I'm not talking about white lies, but try not to speak out of a negative motivation to speak the untruth or to be not truthful, so not to lie. You refrain from any sexual contact, any sexual conduct, conduct. That's actually the third one. Then is lying. So no sex, but again, that's part of living here. So now no sexual conduct, no lying, no intoxicants. And again, not difficult. So the alcohol is only tonight, and anyway, unless you're initiated. No, that's considered to be a tantric practice that is, you don't even perceive it as alcohol. But the point is you don't take it anyway, and it's tomorrow, so no intoxicants. Okay, no intoxicants. And then those are the 5 vows that are the same vows that you take as a layperson, for instance. You can take them as a layperson, except you don't refrain from any sexual conduct, but you take the vow not to engage in any sexual misconduct, which is saying not in any behavior that is harmful to yourself and others. And the last one about no drugs, for instance, intoxicants, they are quite lenient with that one, especially as Holiness the Dalai Lama as a layperson. If you take the lay vows, they say you can take some wine or some beer every now and then, but you shouldn't get drunk. So the social drinking is still accepted. But tomorrow, no exceptions. No social drinking for those of you tempted. Anyway, so yeah, no intoxicants. That's the vow number 5. Vow number 6 is not to eat at the wrong time or eat the wrong kind of food. Okay, wrong time, well, not have dinner, not to eat after lunch. You can have a breakfast and lunch, but you shouldn't eat after lunch. There's no, oh, sorry, you get the stricter version of the 8 precepts. Yeah, well, okay, no breakfast.
Well,
okay.
I think they serve breakfast for the people who are gonna eat breakfast, so don't confuse, because if you take the precepts...
Yeah, don't take the, okay, so it'll be probably made clear to you again tomorrow.
We have to say if we're taking the precepts or not. And
Okay.
the ones
Yes. Fair enough, yes. Yes, so there's been prepared. I mean, there are actually different versions. You can actually, in some versions, you can take breakfast, in others you can't. But it's good to follow the stricter version. It's better for the experience. So you only eat lunch, and after lunch you won't eat. And then there are certain foods you refrain from, but the kitchen takes care of that. Shouldn't eat meat, eggs, no garlic, no onions, no radish. So certain foods, first of all, meat, it makes sense. Eggs is because, well, here in India you have desi eggs, local eggs, and you have eggs that are from these, well, not very humane ways of getting eggs, but these are not fertilized, you see. So local eggs, when they come from the local farms, they could be fertilized. Fertilized as in like, pardon?
Could have life in it. Probably.
Exactly. So they could have been fertilized by a male, like a rooster, and therefore they're actually considered to be meat. Yes. So traditionally in India, eggs are seen as non-vegetarian, right? Because they could be fertilized. But strictly speaking, if they are not, then there's no life in them yet. But anyway, so there's this whole debate about them, but on the day when you take precepts, you don't take eggs. You don't take eggs, so it could also be that they make you feel heavy. and it may disturb your body in other ways. Definitely that's the case about onions and garlic. They disturb the energy winds in your body, and that is less conducive for practice such as meditation. Radish as well, and leech and stuff. So we don't really have radishes here, but yeah, in the West, you're asked to refrain from those. But they won't be in your lunch anyway, so nothing to worry about. That is precept number 6. Precept number 7 is to not sit on high beds. Okay, now that is really not an issue. The beds are not terribly high here. Sitting on this thing here, okay, I mean, I'm not taking the precepts first of all. And secondly, the motivation counts. You shouldn't sit on them with pride. So many of these practices, it's important to understand that traditionally in India, they were also done by people who couldn't become monks and nuns, who were maybe royals, who were, who had certain responsibilities, who were kings and queens and aristocrats and so forth. So sitting on a high throne and looking down on people and being full of pride and haughtiness was possibly something they needed to avoid on those days. Okay, that would also explain it, but of course, yeah, it may foster pride in us. It's not really part of our culture so much, so it's really not the end of the world if you just sit on a high thing without pride. Okay, and then the last one concerns any kind of ornaments, not to wear ornaments, jewelry, not to wear perfume, and also not to sing and dance with attachment. Okay, so in other words, it's all keeping you focused on Dharma practice. I mean, singing and dancing, of course, if it's done to benefit others, it's a different situation. But oftentimes it's done like, out of attachment and not wanting to practice, but just dance and sing and so forth. So there's nothing wrong with singing and dancing, don't get me wrong. And there are also Buddhist practices actually, I mean, like tantric practices that involve dancing at least, and the chanting tonight, it sounds like, I mean, it is singing, right? Especially because it's done for Westerners, it doesn't really sound like a Tibetan chant, to be honest. Because none of you know the Tibetan chant, really, so it's actually going to sound more like a song. It sounds quite different in the monasteries. But that's just natural. We are used to a different style of chanting, if you like. Anyway, so therefore, these are the 8 vows, done with bodhicitta. And yeah, for those of you who are interested to try it out.
Is wristwatch a jewelry? You can consider as a jewelry.
A watch. Do we consider that to be an ornament? Or is it just for practical reasons?
Just for time.
Just for the time. Okay. All right. It just depends on if you like your watch because it's so pretty, you keep looking, oh, how nice, right? Then it's an ornament. It depends on how what it means to you. Also, for those of you whose earrings are maybe, I don't know, grown into your earlobes, don't tear them out, right? It's totally up to you, of course. Yes. Yes, go ahead.
Gejima, back at home when we will be, when I'll be back at home and if I want to continue taking Mahayana precepts,
yes.
like some of my friends in USA, they practice this
Yes.
on daily basis.
Yes.
So is there any particular day in the month when we have to take a Mahayana precept?
No, you don't have to. There are certain auspicious days that you can take them on. So just download Tibetan calendar.
Yeah.
Just take it so easy nowadays. Get this app, Tibetan calendar, and then it's got the 10th and the 25th. You always know when those days are. Wednesdays are considered to be auspicious days. They're considered to be the celestial white days, or the white deity day, Lakar, as it's called in Tibetan. And there are certain, so there's certain auspicious days. You can do it, of course, every day. I know people who do it every day, but that's tough, depending on whether you allow. And if you do it for more than one day, definitely you can take breakfast. And also, what was meant to say? Oh, the very first time you need to take it in front of a person. So tomorrow, whoever is going to give it tomorrow morning, I don't know. Pardon? I won't do. So it won't. Yeah. So won't do giving it. I'm sure he's.
No, please. It just makes it worse.
Makes it worse. Okay. All right. So Wondu will give it. Wondu will give it tomorrow morning. See, he has received it himself, so he's qualified to give it. And then from then on, you can take it on your own. If you do, for the very first time, you take it before a person who's also received it from someone else, and there's said to be an unbroken lineage all the way back to the Buddha. Because every person who's taking it for the first time at least has taken it before someone, and the first person to take it took it before the Buddha. So there's this special lineage, as they describe it. Okay. And yes, you can definitely do that every day from now on. Yes?
Can we have chai in the afternoon?
Yes, you can have chai. Don't put too much stuff in there. Don't put too much sugar in there. Yes. Okay, yes?
Can you just clarify about like dinner? Because for the last few months I've been like so confused watching different monks and nuns like eat dinner.
Ah, yes, yes.
And I'm like, what's going on? And then His Holiness has said like, no solid food and stuff. And so I've just been really confused.
Okay, that's an important question. We actually, as monks and nuns, it's not just that we take the vow for a day, no dinner, but we don't take it, we're not supposed to take it ever. That's one of the vows. But it's very important to know that the vows we have, there are 4, depending on if you're like a novice, for instance, in my case. It's different for a fully ordained nun or a monk, but there's a certain amount of root vows. These you have to keep by all means, right? And they are said to be like the center of your practice, to really keep a virtuous life. And everything else is like a fence around it. It just protects you. It protects you. It helps you to keep those root vows. But there's always, the Buddha himself has said, before he passed away, you need to check which vows make sense. And you don't have to keep them all if the time doesn't require that. So I give you an example. As nuns, for instance, if we're fully ordained, we're not supposed to go anywhere on our own. We should always take another nun. That makes sense if you live in the forest in some uncivilized area. But every time I go to McLeodganj and I need some toothpaste, I have to tag along another nun. No, it doesn't make sense, because of no danger I can go alone, right? So that's why I don't need to do that. I don't need to keep that vow. Now, about eating in the evening. If you're healthy and strong, it's a good idea. But let's not forget, for instance, in Tibet, in India it's very hot. So in the hot summers, not eating in the evening makes sense. You sleep better, your meditation is better. You've got more time, of course, to do other things. When Buddhism went to Tibet, first of all, you couldn't continue with the alms rounds. People would freeze to death. I mean, minus 40 degrees, you go on alms round, you never return. And also, you live in a certain area where there are not enough lay people who couldn't feed everyone. It just wasn't realistic. Secondly, not eating at night. When it's really cold, food keeps you warm. So that didn't work. Which is why this part has been neglected, because they were saying it doesn't make sense, people get sick. The whole purpose is not to get sick, but to keep stronger and healthier. Now, back in India, some people go back to not eating in the evening. So you're usually encouraged to do it for 3, 4, or 5 years, you know. But also when I debated, I was so hungry, and then I didn't eat, and it was so difficult. And at some point I went to see my teacher. I said, oh, I lost so much weight because you move so much. And our debates sometimes went until like, I don't know, late at night. And we were famished. I mean, you just debated the whole time, starting at 6, like I don't know how many hours. So, or 7 then later on. Anyway, but there was so much movement. And my teacher told me, no, you have to eat. So, and now I've gone back to not eating because I can do it now. I can do it. So it's always, you need to check your body. You need to see what you can do. Can you sleep? Some people don't sleep unless they eat. They just don't fall asleep. I had that for a while, and that stopped again, and now I'm fine. So don't be confused. It's just dependent on, some people don't eat in the evening. I know plenty of monks and nuns who don't, even elderly monks and nuns. In the beginning, it's pretty easy, but when you're, used to it over many years, going back is difficult. But there are plenty who don't eat. And His Holiness only takes a very little dinner, because he was told by his physician to eat a little bit. So if you don't eat, if you can't totally stop eating in the evening, at least eat only a little bit, that you're not too stuffed. Yeah. Did you have a question? Oh, yes.
This in Tushita for the precepts, what about makeup?
Makeup.
Yeah, because
No makeup. Yes.
in other places.
Yeah, like ornaments. Yeah. So okay. Well, no. Again, only of course if you have no attachment. There are certain creams and stuff that have like coloring in them, right? So if you're taking these kind of creams, sometimes you can't get any other ones. Then they say no coloring. Actually, makeup is not mentioned. To be honest, it's not actually mentioned. It's for us monks and nuns. But it says like putting on color to. So if you just want to, I don't know, for instance, if you take some medication and it covers blemishes and so forth, and you have nothing else, that's okay. It's about red lipstick and actually sticking out. To look better, exactly. To look better in the sense of like sticking out. Yeah, so lipstick and stuff and so forth. So sometimes the nuns, they take they have to take cream, and sometimes it has some coloring in them. But that's accepted, because it's not like you don't look like you've got makeup on yourself. It's just a kind of a cream that you take. Yeah, so that's no problem. Yes.
One more question. I don't know. We had some people in Copan with diabetes.
Yeah, diabetes you can't. You have to always eat small meals. If you have diabetes, don't take the precepts. It's probably not healthy, or don't take it more than a day. That can be actually quite dangerous, depending on your condition. But I think it's better not to do it. It's not necessary. Or what you could do is take the precepts minus that one. Right? Actually, I don't see any problem in that, because the whole purpose is to take a certain amount of vows, to make some kind of sacrifice, but you can just go, and take one less when you take the precept, to have that in mind. Okay, good. More questions about anything, the puja tonight or the precepts tomorrow? Yes?
Will we understand most of the puja, or as in will it be in English?
Yeah, well, no, it'll be in Tibetan, but you'll get a text. And you have the Tibetan phonetics, and underneath it you have the English. So you can recite it if you want, but you can quickly read between the lines, literally. I mean, like, I don't know, I don't remember how their prayer book is, but I seem to remember one line of the Tibetan phonetics, and then you have the English, you read between the lines, basically. You can quickly just follow what they're doing and recite it together. Or you just don't recite it, you just read it. It's not necessary for you to read it. Yes?
So just clarification, tomorrow at 6 o'clock is the main gompa?
As far as I know, yes.
It's going to be a gong at 5:30 to wake you up.
Okay, 5:30, yes. Okay, yeah. So that gives you enough time to get ready.
And they say, oh yeah, maybe that's good to mention, sorry. You will have a corner, most likely just at the very front of the gompa. So you go in the gompa on the left side, there's going to be a corner of yoga mats. And they actually said it would be good if you could bring your own cushion, not the big one, just the sitting cushion, because they only put yoga mat for this short time, it's easier for them. And you all sit together on the left side where, just at kind of where there's this corner. So that's for you reserved. And it would be actually nice if you could be really punctual, meaning be there at 5:55. They requested me to say that, to be 5 minutes before 6, because really they have to start sharply at 6 because it's so little time. So please try to be as punctual.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're done basically. Well, with that part. And tomorrow morning then, for the first session, we'll finish the Heart Sutra, and as I said, we'll speak about Tantra. And what I would like to do tonight is a meditation on Tonglen. We start off with Tonglen, for those of you who weren't here when I discussed it just after the break. We'll start off with equalizing and exchanging self for others. I think you're all familiar with that technique. What I point out is the fact that we lack inherent existence, so I and others is only relative, and therefore my benefit versus others. And of course, then I'll take you through some other steps. No problem. I mean, this was easy to understand. But for Donglen, it's important to remember the visualization. I don't want to say too much, but you visualize at some point when I ask you to do so, to take on the suffering of all sentient beings. You may visualize it in the form of nectar or in the form of white light. And visualize that the light enters your nose and dissolves into your heart and destroys all your self-centeredness. And then out of that well-being, from the depth of your heart, that joy and all your good qualities, you visualize that you give all your happiness, all your virtue to all sentient beings. Okay? But be aware that, of course, you're not actually taking on the suffering. I need to say that because some people get really worried that they're taking on too much suffering. But of course, that doesn't actually happen. I mean, I had the courses where people were concerned. So I just wanted to clarify that. Okay. Okay. Just follow the breath, watch the breath for some time. Now when we think of I versus others, let's remember that they don't exist inherently, but are merely labeled. Of your 6 consciousnesses, the 5 sense consciousnesses, and the mental consciousness. There are some moments of the mental consciousness that labels I. Of course, not every mental consciousness thinks I. But those of your thoughts thinking I, they are the conceptual minds that label the I. Without such a mental consciousness, labeling in such a way there wouldn't be an I. And in the same way, those who we consider to be others their mental consciousnesses at times also label I. So, what makes us think that our I is the center of the universe? And that my experiences, my well-being is more important than that of others. When my happiness is actually dependent on others. All the things we enjoy that keep us alive, like food and drink, medicine, clothes. If it weren't for others, we wouldn't enjoy what we enjoy now. So many beings are part of the process, whether directly or indirectly. In providing us with that which we need to keep healthy and strong. Entertained, and so on. In fact, all our knowledge comes from others. And even enlightenment, all the qualities we need to develop to transform our mind and reach the awakened state of a Buddha, depends on others. Therefore, since that is the case, and since the I and mine are merely labeled, try to get a sense that others' well-being is just as important as my own. In fact, considering others' well-being to be extremely important and to act accordingly. And in that way, to cherish others. Is said to be the root for all happiness and satisfaction. While self-centeredness, or the mind that only cherishes my well-being, is said to be the root of all troubles, of all sufferings. That being the case, therefore, try to check whether you can get a sense that the others are also I. Since they're I from their own perspective. And therefore, in the same way as I constantly think of my own well-being, my own happiness, and work towards removing any kind of problem or unpleasant sensation, let's do the same for those who, from my perspective, are others, but from theirs are I. To sincerely wish for them find happiness and satisfaction and be free from any type of suffering, dissatisfaction and limitation. As if they all became a part of you, or as if you became them. The same concern we usually have for ourselves. But since the wish for all sentient beings to be happy and free from suffering and its causes, since the mere wish is not enough, let's now visualize that we actively remove the suffering of all sentient beings, to replace it with lasting, pure happiness and satisfaction. As you breathe in, visualize all other sentient beings, misperceptions, afflictions, negative actions, harmful actions, and their resulting dissatisfactory experiences. To arise in the form of black tar or black smoke. And as you breathe in, you're pulling it towards you. And you're taking in as much as possible with all that blackness, all those limitations, absorbing into your heart, destroying your own misperception and self-centeredness. Transforming into all positive qualities, love, compassion, wisdom, which then as you breathe out is pulled out of your nose in the form of white light or white nectar, being equally divided among sentient beings. and in that way providing them with lasting happiness. So let's visualize in that way while breathing naturally. Don't forget the courage and joy, as well as inner strength, that you experience as you actively take the suffering of sentient beings together with their causes and give them all positive qualities. And now visualize as a conclusion that in that short time you've been able to remove sentient beings' obscurations, obscurations to liberation and enlightenment. And you've now placed them to the awakened state of a not just liberated, but fully enlightened being. rejoice in having successfully done so. And once again, let's dedicate all the positive potential we accumulated together as a talk, as a gathering. As a group. May this become a cause for us to actually help sentient beings in such a way that we guide them to the state of liberation and Buddhahood. So may our positive potential become a cause for that. But also become a cause for us to develop the mind of enlightenment as well as the view of emptiness. And may it also cause our great masters who are still among us to have extremely long and healthy lives so that they can continue to guide us through the examples and their teachings. So while focusing on that, let's recite the prayers. May the precious Supreme Bodhicitta, not yet born, arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. May the precious view of emptiness, not yet born, arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Shinreze Denzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. Okay, so you've got a little bit more time to take your dinner and be ready for the group puja. 3-4 more minutes. Okay, so enjoy your evening and see you tomorrow morning. And I'll still address this